This week we will go over and explain the story of Agnes Milowka, the acclaimed technical diver who helped push the sport of scuba diving to new limits and mapped thousands of new feet in caves worldwide. Agnes was born in 1981 in Poland, but her family quickly moved to Melbourne, Australia when she was a young age. For all intents and purposes, she grew up Australian, attending schools there and had great success as a rower. Becoming a champion rower in her age group, she always had a love for the water. After grade school, Agnes attended several universities where she was the president of the Underwater Club and earned degrees in maritime archaeology and business marketing. Having a passion for the ocean, diving, and specifically scuba diving was something Agnes was drawn to instantly. Going on her first dive years before, it was only in 2007 where she got hooked on it. While completing an internship in St Augustine, Florida, she was involved in many excavations of historic shipwrecks in the area. This work was her first introduction into Florida diving. From the shipwrecks in the ocean to the caves in Florida, Agnes was in the perfect spot to become an avid diver. After her internship in Florida, she became trained and certified for cave diving in Australia and quickly racked up dives. In an effort in 2009 by the Victorian Association, James Arundel and Agnes explored the Elk River Streamway cave system. Pushing the line by an additional 1,400 meters or 4,600 feet, it is rumored to be the longest continuous stream passage in Victoria, Australia. Also in 2009, on an expedition near Cocklebiddy, Australia, she reached the midpoint of Craig Chalin's 2008 line, giving her the record for the longest cave dive in Australia for a female. Not only did Agnes have her own photos featured in National Geographic, but she also was in several diving films over the course of her career. Most notably, James Cameron's 2011 Sanctum, where she was a stunt diver for many of the diving scenes and a dive trainer for the other actors on set. She wrote and contributed to over 10 books about her explorations and achievements over the years, which are still being read to this day. By 2010, Agnes was living in Florida full-time and diving every chance she got. She became familiarized with all the caves in the northwest area of Florida, and by the end of the year she had laid over 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet of line across many of these cave systems, the most significant of which was Baptizing Spring. Together with James Toland, she made the connection between Peacock Springs and Baptizing Spring, adding over 3,000 meters or 9,800 feet of passage. The restrictions she made it through to create this traverse isn't possible for the average size male, thus making Agnes perfect for the groundbreaking dive. This was what Agnes specialized in, tight restrictions. Due to her small frame, she was able to fit through restrictions no one else could. In some instances, she was known to go no mount, meaning she took the tanks off her side or back and let them drag behind her in order to fit through tighter and tighter restrictions. This first ever linkage from Peacock Springs to Baptizing Springs was a huge accomplishment for Agnes and the diving world, which subsequently cemented her as a legend in cave diving circles. That brings us to February 27, 2011. While visiting Southeast Australia, Agnes and a diving friend made their way to Tank Cave in the Mount Gambier region a few hours west of Melbourne. The pair had dived in this specific cave too many times to count and were very comfortable within the passages. On her website, Agnes describes Tank Cave as a spiderweb gone wild. Quote, "The walls and roof to begin with are quite soft and squishy, which means that large chunks of the roof rain down on you as you exhale and the visibility quickly reduces to zero." She goes on to say, "This is not only a hazard when coming out through the small restrictions it takes to go in, but it also means that many sections of the cave are fragile and need to be handled with tender love and care." Tank Cave is one of the most controlled cave diving sites in Australia. It does see its fair share of divers each year, as there are groups setting out on dives every other weekend year-round. On that day, Agnes planned on going on a solo trip through a very tight restriction no one else had ever been through. This is where the facts of the story stop and much conjecture and speculation come into play. After looking at several sources, the leading theory is that Agnes split off from her diving partner to go through the planned restriction, and when she did this, she was able to just get through the restriction, but once on the other side, she was unable to move any further. Knowing she was in a dead end, Agnes tried to turn around, but was unable to reverse her body position. She tried to reverse out backwards, but was not able to squeeze back through. At this point, the whole passage was silted out and visibility was at zero. She then eventually ran out of air and drowned. Her dive partner, who waited for Agnes right where he left her, was forced to surface an hour and a half after beginning the dive, and reported Agnes missing to the police just shortly after realizing she had no chance of survival. The other story we found being spread is that just before Agnes made it through the restriction, she had to go no mount in order to make it past how tight the opening was. When she dismounted and proceeded through the restriction with her air tanks trailing behind her, something knocked the regulator out of her mouth. As this happened, she just squeezed past the restriction and left her air tanks and regulator behind. At this point, she was in a silt out. Unable to find the regulator or get back out of the passage, she ended up drowning much quicker than originally thought. It took multiple days for rescue crews to be properly equipped and set up for the retrieval of Agnes. Only after divers recorded a video path to the restriction Agnes's body was behind did experts believe it was possible to retrieve her body. The retrieval team discounted the idea of drilling through about 15 meters of earth to reach her, but chose to go with the expert divers who were confident that they could retrieve her body without having to go into the restriction. The divers worked in pairs with a guideline from the cave's entrance and had positioned several emergency tanks along the route to their deceased friend. Taking a full day, the retrieval went off without any problems. In recognition for all she did for the diving community, Agnes was awarded many posthumous awards for her work in exploration. Having over 5 separate rooms and passages named after her in some of the most visited diving sites during her career, her name will truly live on forever. Rest in peace to Agnes Milowka. Not only did she spread her influence by being an underwater photographer, author, maritime archaeologist, and cave explorer, but from all accounts she was a great person. Dr. Richard Harris, a close friend of Agnes, said she will be remembered as a very vivacious, outgoing woman with a huge smile. Her passion for cave diving will truly be missed. Agnes will always be a legend in the cave diving community as she truly made an impact on a worldwide sport that will transcend generations. That is the story of Agnes Milowka. If you want to hear more scary, fascinating stories, please check out last week's video.